Hey. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Bhutale Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namaste Gauravani Pracharine Shunyavadi Jayo Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Nanda Gadadhara Srivasadi Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Nanda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gora Haribo. Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Let's all say Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna, welcome back everyone for the last 2 lessons of the whole series. We're deep in the heart of Prayojana, and as Maharaj pointed out this morning when he was inviting everyone to come to the class, we can't really enter in deeply into our relationship with Srila Prabhupada as long as we have misconceptions about him. Thinking, feeling, willing. So it starts with thinking. Only when we have founder Acharya Tattva, Prabhupada Tattva straight can we properly engage in a deeply felt relationship with Srila Prabhupada. Lesson 9, Fictional Prabhupads. Studying our founder Acharya's teachings without studying his life and how he lived and applied those teachings is impersonal. And becoming attached to our founder Acharya's personality without studying and following his teachings is sentimental. Before we continue to explore how to deepen our love for Srila Prabhupada, let's identify and dispel some lingering, impersonal, and sentimental misconceptions we may have about him. So, there's some nice line drawings done of Srila Prabhupada by my godbrother Haripad Prabhu. Oop, back. Giving you a preview there. So I have them facing, I say, Prabhupada drawings face off as fictional Prabhupads. So we can imagine one, like the Prabhupada face on the left, saying to the one on the right, "Are you the real Srila Prabhupada, or are you an imposter?" And the one on the right might reply, "I was wondering the same thing about you." So we may have misconceptions kind of rattling around in our consciousness. Of course, Prabhupada is aloof from our misconceptions, but we are subject to illusion in the conditional state. Now, by fictional, we mean illusory, false, or, here's where it gets tricky, incomplete. Even if something's true, if it's incomplete, it turns out to be untrue. That's why in the court they say, do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Because if we just tell part of the truth, that can be very misleading. Okay, let's look at a list of, and by the way, this list is by no means exhaustive, but it's what came to my mind as being some obvious misconceptions which have actually happened in our society. Okay, there's Prabhupada, or is it? Looking rather askance, suspicious at the impersonal list. So where's our, why don't you start, Prabhu? You can. Yeah. Okay.
Impersonal fictions. Prabhupada is God.
Okay, now that's the first one we're going to look at. And that's the most obviously wrong one. It's actually the only obviously wrong one. The rest are kind of subtle. They sound pretty good. Okay, the next one, and you have to see if you can read it the way I actually typed it. Here it is.
ISKCON is Prabhupada.
Right. ISKCON is Prabhupada, equal in all respects, right?
The GBC is Prabhupada.
And?
Prabhupada is the guru only of his initiated disciples.
Okay, now we're going to take a look at each one. There's Srila Prabhupada again at Bhaktivedanta Manor, summer 1973. Another different shot from my godbrother Bhargava Prabhu, capturing Prabhupada looking rather disapprovingly at something, or at least sternly. I'm not sure what Prabhupada was looking at. Okay. Does anybody recall from lesson 1 how Srila Prabhupada introduced the oneness and difference of God and Guru on ISKCON's first Janmashtami day in September 1966? Anybody else besides Maharaj? We'll let Maharaj tell the story if no one else remembers. Who was here for the first lesson? On Friday night? Okay. Prabhu. Friday night, when was it? It was July 27th.
Are you referring to Prabhupada saying as the postal peon?
No. That's another one, actually. No, this is how Prabhupada introduced, that's a little different. How Prabhupada introduced the notion that the Guru and God are one and different. Yeah, the oneness and difference of God and Guru. It happened very dramatically on Janmashtami Day, 1966, September 7th. So anybody know? Oh, Mataji knows.
Again, this is based on what I heard. So he gave initiations to his disciples?
No, before he gave initiation. That was the next day.
Yeah, before he gave initiations to his disciples, he said that a spiritual master should be...
first he said the spiritual master should do what?
The disciples should accept the spiritual master as
God. First, the spiritual master should do what with the disciples? He said take charge of the disciples. He takes responsibility.
Yeah.
to deliver the disciples. And the disciples
Should see the spiritual master as God.
as God.
And they were very perplexed about it. So
Why?
because before that he was explaining that if somebody calls himself as God, he's dog.
He's dog. So now Prabhupada's saying, you have to
That-
accept me as God.
Yeah.
So they're, what? So what happened?
And then finally, like, they went and questioned Prabhupada, like, did you exactly mean that? What did you mean by saying that statement? And if they had not asked that question, he would have not
What did
initiated them.
Prabhupada reply?
He said that the spiritual master is a representative of God, so he should be respected as good as God.
As, yeah, Sakshat Hari Tvena. We don't say he's Sakshat Hari, that he is God. We say he's Sakshat Hari Tvena. He's the representative of God. Just like if the mayor, who's the mayor of Chicago? Who? Oh, Emmanuel. Yeah, I've heard of that. That's right. Okay, so if a representative of Mr. Emmanuel walked into the temple, if we wanted to observe proper etiquette, we would all accept him, just greet him just like we would greet the mayor, right? So the spiritual master is, so to speak, the ambassador of God. So Prabhupada cleared that up. He deliberately dropped the bomb so they'd be confused, and then he was waiting for them to come for clarification. If they didn't do that, I doubt that he would have gone ahead and done the first initiations, because he doesn't want blind followers. Okay, so that was Janmashtami Vyas Puja 1966. 4 Janmashtami Vyas Pujas later, in August 1970, I was a month-old bhakta, and again there was confusion on this point. Only 4 Janmashtamis later, in August 1970, four newly deputed sannyasi disciples of Srila Prabhupada were preaching that Prabhupada was God. So let's look at, okay, that's the fiction, and then Prabhupada firmly came down with the fact. Where's the mic? You want to read?
Fact. There is only one thing worse than underestimating the Guru, overestimating the Guru. They have said, I am God. Therefore, if I am God, they also can become God. This is impersonalism.
Okay, so mortified, aghast at how they had been misled to minimize Srila Prabhupada's position some months earlier, the sannyasis then overcompensated by saying Srila Prabhupada was Krishna. To uproot this impersonal weed in the heart of his movement, Srila Prabhupada expelled the sannyasis from ISKCON until they rectified themselves. So, can you imagine? I was like 5 weeks old devotee. I joined in Boston. So the management took a few of us newbies down to the first movement-wide festival in ISKCON. This was the first big festival in ISKCON before people were going to India in any significant numbers. And so some devotees from Europe came, of course Canada, Mexico, and mostly the US, because that's where most of the temples were. I think there was 35 temples at that time. 35, 40. So I'm a brand new guy, right? So the 10-hour drive from Boston to New Vrindavan. We started early in the morning. We got there around, late in the afternoon or early evening. So I throw open the door of our 40 Econoline van, jump out, and what's the first thing I see? A sannyasi, one of these rookie sannyasis. He's got a temple president by the collar, and he's throwing him against the white farm fence at the old Vrindavan farm. And he's saying to the TP, Prabhupada is God! Do you understand? And because we haven't recognized this, He's left us. Do you understand? Prabhupada is God. Well, it wasn't until decades later I actually understood the whole story of why they were saying that. They had been given sannyas in June. This is August now, right? August 70. In June, Prabhupada, in order to purify 4 young men who were becoming misled by a compromised, minimized understanding of Prabhupada by some jealous folks in India, to purify them, Prabhupada kicked them out of the house, so to speak. He gave them sannyas. I mean, talk about proactive. They had been, especially one, Brahmananda Swami at the time, and the whole story is revealed in following Srila Prabhupada DVD series, Yadabar's beautiful 11 DVD series about Srila Prabhupada. So Brahmananda starts telling the story of how we had been minimizing Prabhupada. I especially had become envious of Prabhupada, and so he just kicked them out of the house. He just gave them sannyas. And as the summer wore on, they began to meditate on the gravity of their offense and their foolishness for believing what some envious folks in India were saying about Bhaktivedanta Swami. And they came to Boston actually in July, and they were fine then, where I was, ecstatic, sung kirtans. And then a month later, Janmashtami Vyas Puja was like the 17th, 18th of August that year. So we drove down a few days before Janmashtami, and that's what I saw. So what was going on in their heads as they were traveling and preaching that summer was they just became so disturbed by how they had been minimizing Prabhupada and had this horrible misconception that he was some kind of an ordinary man, and now he was controlling so many people, and they felt they were being mind controlled or something. I'm not sure exactly what they were feeling. But anyway, what happened was they had been minimizing him, and so they did a complete psychological flip-flop. The pendulum was here, and then it... And they came to the realization that Srila Prabhupada is Krishna. That's who he is, and we haven't recognized this. Because they had been minimizing him, and therefore they thought they had this new great revelation that Prabhupada's Krishna. And you know what they were basing the whole thing on, shastrically? I mean, there were only 2 or 3 books in the movement then. They had Nectar of Devotion, when it had just come out. And on page 59 of the Nectar of Devotion, Lord Krishna says to Uddhava, "My dear Uddhava, know the Acharya to be my very self." And we know the verse now, Acharyang mam bhajaniyam. So they had the oneness down, but they forgot the difference. Sakshad Hari Tvena. So then when they got to New Vrindavan for the festival, they were there to explode and deliver their great realization to us, because Prabhupada, he was in Los Angeles, and he was supposed to do a tour from the West Coast to the East Coast, because when I joined in July, the buzz was at the temple, Prabhupada's coming. Here, take this paintbrush, Prabhu. Take this sweet ball. Huh? Paint away. That's what always happened at ISKCON temples, early ISKCON temples. Prabhupada was always... And then there was this funny... The temples always smelled like fresh paint and incense. So, and then Prabhupada, they said, no, actually Prabhupada's not coming. Because instead of going east across America from the west, he went west over the Pacific to start, bring Krishna consciousness back to India. And then it was there that he started calling for his dancing white elephants. So Prabhupada was in Tokyo for Janmashtami Vyas Puja. So what was going on? A few days before Janmashtami Vyas Puja in New Vrindavan, the place was pandemonium. It was chaos. People were blooping left and right. Do they still use the word blooping in ISKCON? They do. Okay. You know what blooping is? It means leaving, right? The association of devotees. So, and because half the devotees were believing these sannyasis. I mean, they were among the first people in the sannyas order in ISKCON, so people were looking at them like they were God, you know. But the GBC wasn't buying it. It was the first gathering of the people that Prabhupada listed as GBCs. He had just created the GBC a month earlier, mostly householders. And the temple presidents weren't buying it. You know, the senior devotees, the people who had been in the movement for maybe 2 years, or at most 4 years, they weren't buying it. But a lot of devotees were buying it. And this, you can imagine, I walked into this gathering and it's like the whole movement's being torn asunder. It's like an earthquake is happening. And people were just leaving. They were just walking down that farm road, you know, out to McCreary's Ridge Road, and then out to 250, and just saying, this is crazy, this is another cult, you know. So finally, the first official act of the GBC was to, I think there was a telegram and a phone call. This is what your sannyasis are saying, what do you say? Expel them immediately. These were people who were very dear to Prabhupada. But when Prabhupada detected something that was life-threatening to his movement, the same thing he did in LA in '76 when he came down really heavy on the Gopi Baba Club. That's another story. Anyway, so there was an impersonal weed growing right in the heart of his movement. All the leaders were there. It was the first Janmashtami in ISKCON. Expel them. So you hear on the DVD, you hear Brahmananda said, so Bhagavan, then Bhagavan comes on the recording and he said, so I drove them to Detroit and I locked them in the attic. He's like quarantine. And the next day I let them out. And then Brahmananda comes back on the DVD and he says, we had nothing. I had a quarter, in his New York accent, I had a quarter, 25 cents in my pocket. They were starving, they were without anything. You know, they just had the clothes on their back, and they just walked right out of town. Well, the first night, actually, they found a tree, and it had nice pine needles, because luckily it was warm at least. They lay down under this big pine tree on a bed of pine needles, and the next morning they woke up, and they looked, and they were right outside the headquarters of the Ford Motor Company. I think it's on Jefferson, right on Jefferson. And then dawn started to break, or dawn had been breaking, and a little boy came up to them. And he had a big jug of milk, and he had a big loaf of bread. My mommy told me to give this to you. It's like a Krishna story, right? So they offered the bread and the milk, and they had some strength, and then they kept walking. And they walked right to Ann Arbor, which is quite a hike, and they took shelter there. And then they got a message from Srila Prabhupada that you can come back in the association of devotees if you split up, like true sannyasis, go alone, and you open up, each of you open up a temple, recruit new devotees, and you preach the right thing. The spiritual master is not God. He's the pure, transparent representative of God. So that was my introduction to ISKCON politics. Prabhupada's God. Nothing, I'll tell you, nothing before or since, even the zonal Acharya era, even Prabhupada leaving, compares to the devastation I was feeling at that gathering. I was a brand new devotee, you know, and it was insane. So, but I'm glad it happened, at least, and that's... Well, on the way back from the festival, I mean, when Prabhupada came down, you know, with that order to expel them, then the GBC triumphantly called a meeting of all the devotees, and Hayagriva Prabhu made the announcement. Srila Prabhupada has said he's not God. He's representative of Krishna. And so everybody was clear. This is coming right from Prabhupada. Everything's all right. Krishna's God, and Prabhupada is his representative. So all the way back to Boston after the festival, it was a great festival when that was cleared. There's pictures, there's photos of it. I was being preached to by Satsarup Das Adhikari, married at the time, married to Jadharani. He was the president of the Boston Temple. And he kept saying to me and a few of the newbies, Srinath was one of them, and a couple of, one more. Huh? Ija? No, that was before. Yeah. He said, he kept saying to us, now do you understand? Prabhupada's not God, Krishna's God, and Prabhupada's his representative. Do you understand? He kept saying this, you know, from time to time, just to make sure we were okay. Okay, so that was obvious. I mean, don't underestimate Maya, right? She can make you believe up is down, good is bad, and that's the power of Maya. And that's what she did with these sannyasis. And okay, so epilogue, the sannyasis did what Prabhupada said, and they were reinstated. Vishnujan went to Austin, Texas. Gargamuni went to Gainesville, Florida. I was telling Prabhu, and he started doing what we call Krishna lunch there. It was born right then and there when Gargamuni hit Gainesville. And then Brahmananda went to Miami. Subal, I always thought he went to Santa Fe, but I'm not sure about that now. Did he go to Santa Fe? Okay. I think it was, but I'm not. I had heard something recently that made me doubt. Yeah, in Ann Arbor, right? Yes. Okay, so now, I spent a lot of time with that because it's obvious, but now we're going to look at other fictions which are not as obvious. In the next slide, we'll examine a subtler fictional Prabhupada. Okay, the fiction. Who wants to read this one? Where's the... Madan Gopal. Oh, Mataji.
Thank you.
Sure.
Fiction. ISKCON is Prabhupada.
Now you got to read it the way I wrote it. See how I... Is.
ISKCON is
Prabhupada. That means equal in all respects. That's what makes it fictional. Okay. There's Prabhupada again with his left hand in that mudra when he's explaining things. He does that a lot. Okay, so let's read the fact.
Fact. You are all my limbs of my body. Unless you cooperate, my life will be useless. The senses and life are correlative.
Correlative. You can't have one without the other.
Without life, the senses cannot act, and without sense, life is inactive.
Yes. Okay. So, Prabhupada also was famous for saying, although it was never recorded, ISKCON is my body. He probably said it because we have so many good ear witness testifiers to that. But this is the same thing. Since Srila Prabhupada has called us the limbs of his body, that means his unique spirit is our life and soul. Now, while ISKCON is certainly Prabhupada's energy, as its creator, Prabhupada retains his own identity. As Srila Prabhupada once explained to a group of UK university students, now Prabhupada said this to people who weren't even his disciples. They were just visiting guest students at the manor in 1973. Quote, suppose if I say, I am everything in this my institution, does it mean I have lost my personality? No, no. If somebody says that Bhaktivedanta Swami is everything, does it mean I have lost my personality? That is a material understanding. So ISKCON is Prabhupada, is fictional because it is incomplete. As the founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada is certainly the life and soul of ISKCON, yet everything in ISKCON doesn't equal Prabhupada. Oneness without difference is impersonal and incomplete. It's actually very dangerous because, as we know, a lot of things go on in our society that don't necessarily reflect Prabhupada's will, although our job is to make it, improve it so it does reflect his will. So if we just make this kind of naive equation, absolute equation between Prabhupada and ISKCON, then we can easily be misled. So how do we prevent that? How do we save ourselves from thinking naively that ISKCON is Prabhupada? It's so obvious you're not saying it. All right, here we go. It's probably good if you sit on that corner.
The question is, how is it obvious that Prabhupada...
How are we spared the misconception that ISKCON, that everything that happens at ISKCON is Prabhupada?
Well, Prabhupada invested his direction for the entire society through this incorporated society called ISKCON, and therefore everything that we are supposed to represent has to become a representative of what Prabhupada gave us. But when things are not aligned with Prabhupada...
How do we know that?
And we know that through Prabhupada's instructions.
There you go. We always have to be hearing from Srila Prabhupada, and then we'll know what's real and not real.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you can easily mistake the weed for the creeper, right? And sometimes, I mean, this not only happens individually, sometimes whole yatras have just run with a real serious misunderstanding, and they end up sliding off into the ocean of birth and death. Yeah, we have to be constantly hearing from Srila Prabhupada to know what's really his will, because his will is Krishna's will. And so how do we know that? It's not a sentimental thing. It takes a lot of work to know what Prabhupada wants. He might say this, but that might be a relative expression of his will. But when it comes to absolutely what he wants, then he'll say it in all times and all places to all devotees.
Yeah.
So it's a life's work to know what is Prabhupada and what's not Prabhupada. In the next slide, we'll look at a similar subtle fiction. Okay, so another... Oh, so let's give somebody else a... Okay, so here we go. So where's Prabhupada there? Is he Vrindavan or Mayapur? Yeah, because there's Jayapataka Maharaj's, you can barely make it out, his profile. Anybody know who that is? That's a young, he's in the sannyas order now, but then he was a grihastha. Can you see? Maybe the body's changed too much. I can, No, he's small, he's short, he's slight, and he practices yoga. That's Kavichandra Maharaj as a grihastha. Do you know him here? He doesn't come here. Yeah. Anyway, there's Vishnujan Maharaj, the famous in Satsarup. And where's Bhavananda? Here? Here? I don't think that's him. I think that's Sridhar, isn't it? Or maybe not. It's hard to say. Oh, sorry. It's hard to say who that is. It looks like it could be Sridhar. Anyway, there's Murti, there's Yadavar, there's Shrutakirti, the servant. So let's look at another fiction here. Okay, you're reading, right?
Fiction. The GBC is Prabhupada.
Is Prabhupada. Okay, let's look at the fact.
Fact. The governing body commission, GBC, will be the ultimate managing authority for the entire International Society for Krishna Consciousness.
That's the first line of Prabhupada's will. Now, ultimate managing authority. It took the GBC 36 years to define that. In 2013, they came out with a resolution, finally solving the mystery of UMA, ultimate managing authority. Here's what the resolution says. Quote, when we use the word authority in the context of the managerial structure, we do not mean an absolute infallible authority, thank you very much, such as the authority of Scripture, or Prabhupada, beyond the 4 human defects, but the mandate, we mean the mandate, the order, to organize the preaching movement so that it is aligned with the instructions of Srila Prabhupada. That's what ultimate managing authority means. Now, although Prabhupada did not have faith in any one GBC member following the vision of Srila Bhaktivinoda and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Prabhupada did have faith in the GBC body, the collective sincerity and intelligence of the GBC body. Provided, now here's the big provided they acted cooperatively to carry out his instructions. Here's how Srila Prabhupada put it to Tamal Krishna Maharaj as recorded in TKG's diary. So this is a little excerpt from Tamal Krishna Maharaj's June 27th, 1977 diary entry. Quote, in the middle of the night, Srila Prabhupada called for me. Now this is after the will has been signed and, officially made legal. In the middle of the night, Srila Prabhupada called for me. He could not sleep. Thinking of the will had kept him up. Okay, everything's finally, on paper, it's legal, properties are protected. Prabhupada's still worried about what's going to happen after he leaves this world. And then Prabhupada says to TKG, amongst the GBC, have you selected one after me who will succeed? And Prabhupada never wanted that. He wasn't about appointing a successor, because you don't succeed the founder Acharya. You don't replace him. You cooperate with him and his instructions and carry on the mission under the management of a governing body. So Tamal, that was kind of a leading question. Prabhupada's testing Tamal. Have you selected one? And so Tamal Krishna Maharaj passes the test. I replied that we felt that we should manage together as a group, that none of us was more qualified than the others. Prabhupada responds, quote, yes, each of you can be Acharya of your zone. Now here's the historical irony here. It was Prabhupada himself who created what later became known as the zonal Acharya system. So Prabhupada, he created that. Although it was Srila Prabhupada himself who gave us the zonal Acharya system, the zonal Acharya nightmare that followed after his disappearance was evidence we did not really understand the crucial distinction between an Acharya and a founder Acharya. During the dark night of ISKCON's soul, competing Acharyas, in other words, people who are imitating Prabhupada's position as founder Acharya, accepting worship on his level, or even sometimes beyond, were threatening the integrity of the entire Hare Krishna movement. Did anybody here join the Hare Krishna movement in the 1980s? Were you in ISKCON? Okay. Yeah, you were there. It's amazing you're still here. Thank you very much. Well, I had, old-timers who joined in the 70s, we knew the whole thing was insane, because what was going on was there were as many Hare Krishna movements as there were zonal Acharyas. They'd become like kingdoms unto themselves, and they were all competing. it was threatening the integrity of the entire Hare Krishna movement. It was wrong, 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 and it had to go. And it did. That's another seminar, how that went. Wait a minute, let me just finish this sentence here. Only when the GBC again heeded our founder Acharya's mandate to work cooperatively instead of competing, you know, and not transcendentally competing, believe me. Instead, let's see. Only when the GBC again heeded our founder Acharya's mandate to work cooperatively did ISKCON start the long recovery process that continues to this day. Maharaj. Whoop.
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind. One, obviously, and you stated it, that the zonal program was initiated by Prabhupada. So, but then it got corrupted, and then we threw the whole thing out, though. We threw the whole thing out, the whole zonal Acharya thing. Now, Prabhupada started it, and I also came across some writings of the Goswamis, and there's also indications there also in Goswami's writings that talks about that the different acharyas in different areas should accept initiates from their areas also. Right. So why did we throw the whole thing out without trying to correct the mistake?
Why did we?
Yeah.
Because the pendulum always swings. Whoop, whoop. What was the reaction to the zonal Acharya system? Do you know? What was the reaction to what I call Dikshism? We're going to look at this later in the lesson. But. Yeah, that's true. I should have worded it differently. What was the movement that sprung up to oppose Dikshism, zonal Acharya? Ritvigism. Okay, so we're going to hold that thought because we're going to revisit that in the last fictional Prabhupada. Okay. Did you have any more to say about that? Oh, you just asked the question, why did we throw out... It was actually, I know recently at least the GBC has been trying to get GBCs to just have at least contiguous zones, so they're not like in India and then they're over in South America and then they're way up in Reykjavik, Iceland, and then they're, you know, it doesn't work. It makes it rough on the person, and also it's like you become like a stranger in a strange land. You know, you're just over here, but then the people don't even know you. And you can't possibly tend to so many people in so much area. But let's, we're going to look at that a little bit later too. Okay. So the GBC is Prabhupada, is fictional because again it is incomplete. Although ISKCON's ultimate managing authority is the GBC does not replace ISKCON's founder Acharya, whose definitive Vani remains the supreme authority in ISKCON. Reality always includes oneness and difference. So to say the GBC is Prabhupada is to disregard that obvious difference. It's dangerous. Yeah, Prabhupada said we needed a GBC to manage the movement, but that doesn't mean that they somehow replace Prabhupada. To this day, sometimes you hear people refer to the GBC as Prabhupada's chosen successors, which is pretty dangerous. Yes, to manage the movement, now they're on their, you know, Prabhupada was grooming them, and then he passed the baton when he did the will. But don't you dare, don't even think it, that somehow they replaced Prabhupada. And that's what caused a lot of that's what the chaos of the 80s was all about. Now the next fiction is a leftover from that zonal Acharya nightmare. So where's the mic? Okay, Prabhu, you wanna? So there's that famous shot again. Prabhupada in San Francisco Ratha Yatra.
Fiction. Prabhupada is the guru only of his initiated disciples.
Okay, now let's read the fact.
fact, Srila Prabhupada is the foundational Shiksha Guru for all ISKCON devotees because he has realized and presented the teachings of the previous Acharyas of the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya appropriately for the modern age.
You see this?
From 1994 GBC Resolution number 35, the founder Acharya's statement.
By 1994, at least the GBC had sufficiently recovered itself to come out with the first founder Acharya resolution. There's been a few. And, okay, that was passed in March 1994. Now, 5 months after the GBC passed this resolution, March 1994, on Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja morning in Mayapur, so now it's say August 94, a senior devotee gently confronted a local brahmachari for not observing the Vyasa Puja fast. So a godbrother of mine, he was walking in the courtyard, you know that you come out the west door, you know, facing what's now the TOVP construction. And there's the courtyard, right, where you buy the Mahaprasadam. You know, you've been to Mayapur? If you've been to Mayapur, you know what I'm talking about. So my godbrother was chanting japa on Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja morning, and all of a sudden he sees in the corner, kind of hiding in the corner, a local brahmachari chomping down on a big piece of pizza. So as tactfully as he can, he goes up to the brahmachari and says, "Oh, Prabhu, maybe you didn't know, this is Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja morning, and we're fasting." The brahmachari replied, "Oh, you say that because Srila Prabhupada is your guru. He's not my guru." Because he's only thinking of Diksha, right? Dikshism. It's still alive and well there. So my godbrother, he just was so shocked that he just didn't say a word. He just walked away, and he ended up writing a booklet called Shiksha Diksha, which he offered to Srila Prabhupada for Prabhupada's centennial 2 years later. Obviously, no one had informed the brahmachari about the founder Acharya resolution passed just a few months earlier, right in Mayapur, where he was serving. Since 1994, the GBC has passed several founder Acharya resolutions. Here's one from 2013. This is the most recent one. Quote, Srila Prabhupada, as the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, is the preeminent Shiksha Guru for all members of ISKCON. All members of ISKCON, for all generations, are encouraged to seek shelter of Srila Prabhupada. All members of ISKCON are entitled and encouraged to have a personal relationship with Srila Prabhupada through his books, teachings, service, and his ISKCON society. That's pretty clear. So then I say, we don't need more legislation. We don't need another founder Acharya resolution. We need more education, as the following sentimental fictions about Srila Prabhupada will now remind us. So that's the 4 impersonal fictions I chose to highlight. What are they? Prabhupada is God. ISKCON is Prabhupada. The GBC is Prabhupada. And Prabhupada is the guru only of his initiated disciples. Prabhupada never introduced himself like this. My name is A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. I am the Diksha Guru of 5,000 ex-hippies. He never said that. Instead, it was always, my name is A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. I am the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. But we are still understanding what that means, right? Okay, so let's look at the sentimental fiction. Oh, it's too bad. Yeah, you guys have to leave. Okay, well, catch the video. This is even more fun. Sentimental fictions. All right, there's Prabhupada looking rather bemused over this list you're about to see. Where's the Okay. Prabhu, you want to read?
Illusory Prabhupada.
Illusory. You'll find out what that means.
Figurehead Prabhupada.
Figurehead Prabhupada.
Gone forever Prabhupada.
Gone forever Prabhupada. And here's the flip side of that.
Diksha Guru forever Prabhupada.
Diksha Guru forever. These are all fantasies, sentimental fantasies. Okay, so sentimental fictions refers to misconceptions based on the bodily concept of life. Okay, here we go. Illusory, there's Prabhupada. Was that the picture you were referring to, Maharaj, that you liked? No? Okay. Okay, so now illusory Prabhupada, I got that phrase from my godbrother Borijan Prabhu, who was a pioneer along with his dear wife Jagatarini in Hong Kong. In the early 70s, and those are the days when Prabhupada just, because it was the Hare Krishna explosion, so Prabhupada would just tell people to go here, go to the far ends of the earth. The famous one where they were in Bombay going to Allahabad, I think, for Kumbh Mela. And so Prabhupada says to Guru Das and Jamuna, get down and start something. The train had just pulled into Delhi. So Prabhupada gave them one name. They didn't have anything, you know. Just get down and start something, you know. That's how it was. That was what it was like in those days. Yeah, it was like you never knew, as Shyam Sundar Prabhu would say, like in his talks about Prabhupada, he would say, you never knew what was going to happen. When you went into Prabhupada's room, anything could happen. You know, you could. Therefore, it was always exciting, right? And it was always, you never could even guess it. It was so unimaginable. Okay, so Borijan and Jagatarini, they're in Hong Kong in the early 70s, and they have no association. In fact, their association, ISKCON association, once in a while they'd be visited by someone who actually was very critical of ISKCON, even though he was in ISKCON. And it wasn't good. It wasn't good association. And also, they were, you know, they were in an apartment, they were working, they got some work. And they were trying to reach the students. So first, Borijan wrote a letter to Prabhupada and saying, Srila Prabhupada, could I grow my hair out a little bit just to kind of connect better with the students and they can think we're more like normal or something? And Prabhupada said, okay, you can grow your hair a little. And they got jobs. And at first, they started out, they had a full morning program. They had a little altar and very simple deity worship, and they had a class, and they had japa. You know, it was a kind of a streamlined, but potent morning program. But as time went on, as the students came, it became a night thing, where the students would come at night after the classes, and they'd have prasadam for them, and Borijan was cooking a little Chinese vegetarian and offering. And then pretty soon, you know, because they were up late with the students, then they started getting up later, and little by little, they began to, the morning program sort of disappeared. And then they ended up going to work, and then after work, kind of taking a clicker and going on the beach and just sort of, you know, snick ram on the beach. Very poor rounds. So that's what was going on. And then they got a telegram. Is it the telegram or a letter? I think it was a telegram from Satsvarup Maharaj, who was traveling with Srila Prabhupada in 1974 as Prabhupada's servant, and saying, get ready, we're coming in a couple of weeks, Srila Prabhupada and I. So immediately, wow, they swung into action and they started trying to get some money so they could hire somebody to make some super expensive garland, rose garland for Prabhupada. And then also they were going to hire a Rolls Royce to pick Prabhupada up at the airport. You know? So, well, 2 weeks turned into 3 weeks. Finally, after 4 weeks, Prabhupada came to Hong Kong. And just by seeing Prabhupada, Borijan and Jagat Tarini were kind of like, they were kind of shocked, because just by seeing Prabhupada, as Borijan says, we had been gradually, as we began to neglect Prabhupada's instructions, we had been worshiping an illusory Prabhupada, because we were following him less and less, even though we were his disciples. So they pick Prabhupada up in the Rolls Royce. It comes late, you know, and then they give him this big fancy garland. Oh, it's so nice to see you, Srila Prabhupada. We haven't seen you in so long. You're our life and soul, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada looks him square in the eye and says, what is your morning program like? Prabhupada always knew what was going on. Just by seeing his disciples, he could tell their consciousness. Well, Srila Prabhupada, you know, the students are coming late, and then we have to go to bed late, and we get up late, and we really can't do a morning program. Prabhupada comes right back and says, whose disciples are you? You know my instructions. Because this is out of his compassion. He knows that if they neglect those sacred morning hours where you get spiritual strength, chanting Hare Krishna, hearing the Bhagavatam, worshiping the Lord, they're going to just fade away. So here's how Borijan puts it. Where's the mic? Okay, so why don't we... Kevin is going to get a chance here. So this is from Borijan Prabhu's book, again, My Glorious Master, where he was talking about fanaticism again.
I had been imagining a Prabhupada that allowed a compromise of purity and Krishna conscious practices. When I was suddenly confronted by the real Prabhupada, the illusory Prabhupada dissolved like mist after sunrise. Prabhupada, as he himself said, was 90% liberal, but that other 10% was strict.
Yeah. How was Prabhupada 90% liberal? Do you know when he said that? It's funny how he said that. When Prabhupada took his first airplane ride to where? From New York to San Fran. No, his second center was in San Francisco. The first airport reception, Mukunda and Janaki were already initiated, but they had all these friends, all these counterculture friends. Joan and Roger and Sam and Melanie and so many people. Sam's dog, Ralph, was there too. So the only people the press knew, so Mukunda smartly invited the press to come and cover this landing of a real live spiritual master. So the press didn't know who Swamiji was, but they knew who one person in the crowd was Allen Ginsberg, the counterculture poet. And so they said, hey, Allen, who's this? Oh, this is Swami Bhaktivedanta. He's an authentic Gaudiya Vaishnava spiritual master. Of course, he's very conservative. So the next day, when the devotees read to Prabhupada the piece, Prabhupada stopped on that line. Conservative? Why, I'm 90% liberal. Because, I mean, he came. Sadhus don't cross the ocean to associate with Mlechas Yavanas. And Prabhupada had to walk through fire and endure so much madness to launch the Hare Krishna movement. But why do you think Ginsberg said conservative? Yeah, but what specifically? What did Prabhupada insist on? The regulative principles, right? The regulative principles of devotional service, which to Ginsberg is like off the charts. So that other 10% was strict. So Prabhupada was very generously, kindly spoon-feeding the first devotees Krishna consciousness. Then later he would talk about boiling the milk. We don't need so many, unqualified people just to get them in, and then a lot of them would leave. We have to be very strict now in who we're admitting into our Sangha. Okay, so the question is, how can we avoid having an illusory Prabhupada? Maybe we're worshiping an illusory Prabhupada. Okay, it's the same answer Maharaj is going to give us. Let's get the...
We have to hear from Prabhupada, and we have to hear from those who heard from Prabhupada.
Yes, we have to always be hearing from His Divine Grace. And a person is known by the company he keeps, right? So we have to be in the company of people who can help us to understand why Prabhupada's saying this, why context, balance, you know, all these things. Intention. Right. It's very important. So otherwise we develop these weird things about Prabhupada. Weird understandings. Okay, so that's illusory. Let's look at, the Queen. For most of my adult life, Queen Elizabeth has been the Queen of England. She ascended to the throne in 1952. I was born in 1946. So in 2012, Queen Elizabeth toured the UK for her Diamond Jubilee, 60 years. And she's now the longest reigning queen that ever. She surpassed Victoria. And she was a hit wherever she went. She even went to Avanti school near the manor. And she got darshan of Sri Sri Panchatattva, and she got a garland, she and Prince Philip, her husband, and they took prasad. They got the mercy, you know. And everywhere she went, the Queen was a hit. Does the Queen have any power? Well, she has some charisma, some sentimental appreciation. But who has the power in the UK? Prime Minister Theresa May right now, right? Although that's dubious because it's a very fragile government over there. So what's a figurehead? Dictionary says, quote, a person who is head of a group, company, nation, and so forth in title, but actually has no real authority or responsibility. Most modern kings and queens are figureheads. So we don't, as we get further and further away from Prabhupada's manifest presence in time, we don't want him to recede in importance for succeeding generations of devotees and become just like a memory. Like George Washington is the father of our country in America, right? But he's got no authority over our lives. Okay, we got another, here we go, good.
Something we hear, and it's still going on in different places by different persons, is that what Prabhupada said was good for this time that he was there, but it doesn't apply now because times have changed.
Okay, and then you have to get back to, remember lesson 8? We have to know the difference between principles and details. That statement is dangerous because it's half truth. Mm-hmm. There's a little truth to everything, even the most outrageous thing. And you hear Prabhupada say this. So what is the truth? If nothing is all bad, I heard him say this on a recording recently, there must be some truth there too. So it's true that the times have changed. Srila Prabhupada would say to us, if I have any credit, it's that I have not changed anything. That means from what he received from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. But look what Prabhupada did. How did he launch the Hare Krishna movement? He adjusted so many things. And the Godbrothers even criticized him for it, right? So it's no small thing to know the difference between adjusting a detail and monkeying with a principle. Okay, so anybody who says that doesn't know the difference between time sensitive and timeless. Prabhupada, you're going to see at the end of this afternoon's lesson, right toward the end of the seminar, how Prabhupada is encouraging us to be faithful and yet fresh. It's a famous purport, Bhagavatam 141 purport. How to faithfully represent the parampara, but be creative too. And you don't change the intent or the principles, but you have to be very creative in how you deliver the timeless message in a way that's very up to date, the way Prabhupada did, by recording the Hare Krishna Happening album, for example, in a studio in New York City, in Greenwich Village. I mean, Prabhupada did so many unprecedented things, but he never changed the intent or the spirit or compromised on timeless principles. So that's dangerous to say that. That means they're going to throw the guru, the founder Acharya, out with the bathwater, if that's how they think. Okay, so let's look at, okay, we don't want Prabhupada as a figurehead the way Queen Elizabeth is, or any, monarch these days. There's a couple of, actually, there are some monarchs that do have power, but they're little tiny little places. Like, what's that place? Luxembourg. Okay, let's read the facts. So who's reading? Yeah, Kevin, you're reading, right? Okay.
The Guru, especially the Jagat Guru, is not like a family priest for performing ritual ceremonies, nor is he a figurehead appointed by the institution without real presence in the arts, in the hearts and minds of his followers. Rather, he is the core of his followers' very being. He is my Lord, birth after birth.
Mm-hmm. So that's a line, of course, from Sri Guru Charana Padma translation. Well, we sing the song every day, but if Bengali is not our mother tongue, number one, do we know what these lines even mean when we sing them? And even if we do, are there any native Bengalis in the house? Native Bengalis? No? Okay. Anybody speak Bengali? Okay. So none of us, Bengali is not our mother tongue. So when we say, Chakudan dilo je janme janme Prabhu se, number one, do we even know what we're singing? He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. Even if we know what we're singing, do we believe it? Do we actually believe it? Do we know what we're singing? When Srila Prabhupada introduced daily Guru Puja to himself in his temples after the deity greeting, he was making a strong founder Acharya statement, whose deepening significance will help us find the unity we need to take Krishna consciousness to every town and village. Yes. Okay. When did
Prabhupada introduce that?
Okay, you may remember, I remember, because I was serving in Gainesville Temple, the first Gaur Purnim festivals of any consequence were in 1974. 72, there was a few devotees observing Prabhupada breaking ground, and that was very historic. In 74, they rented a Air India jumbo jet, and they all went over en masse from America, a lot of them, and the pilot had to go over the PA and say, please stop dancing in the aisles because you're disturbing the course of the plane. Anyway, it was at that Mayapur, actually it was in Bombay after the festival. Prabhupada greeted the deities, and the system had been that the devotees following Prabhupada would offer flowers to the deities, just like they do in Chaupati. You offer flower to the, and then you go back to Prabhupada's Murti. So there was Prabhupada himself in person, and he was offering flowers, and the devotees were following suit. And then he went back to his seat, and instead of giving Bhagavatam class, he taught the devotees a new song, Sri Guru Vandana. And then he made it like a new part of the morning program. So when my temple president came back to Gainesville, Amarendra Prabhu, he said, oh, and Prabhupada also made an amendment to the morning program. Now we have Guru Puja, worship of the Guru right after greeting the deities. So what was our reaction? Oh, cool, a new song, yeah, right? But did we understand the full import of that? That Prabhupada in front of the deities is instituting worship of himself for all generations of devotees for all time in ISKCON? No, we didn't understand, because he's the only guru in ISKCON. That's as far as our vision was. We couldn't imagine anybody else. Now, how can we keep Srila Prabhupada from becoming a mere figurehead whose authority fades with the passage of time? Again, by regularly studying Srila Prabhupada's words and by serving with devotees who are serious and sincere about following his life, teachings, mood, and mission. Failure to do this leads to the final sentimental fiction. Is it the final? No, the next sentimental fiction. There's two more. Okay, if we don't hear and serve with devotees who are serious and sincere, here's what may happen. Gone forever, Prabhupada. There's Prabhupada on a morning walk in Germany. Somebody said this is Bhakti Bhushana Maharaj as a brahmachari. Is that? Yeah? Okay. So, let's look at, so there's the fiction, right? Gone forever. And you got the, why don't you give to Prabhu here? Let's read the fact.
Gone forever, Prabhupada. There are two ways of association, by Vani and Vapu. Vani means words and Vapu means physical presence. Physical presence is sometimes appreciable and sometimes not. Sometimes not. But Vani continues to exist eternally. Therefore, we must take advantage of the Vani, not the physical presence.
Now, if that's the only quote you ever read about Vani and Vapu, you know, the physical body of the spiritual master and the eternal vibration coming in disciplic succession, you get a very unbalanced view of the Guru. Both are important, actually. Can you imagine if, let's say, Chandramala Swami, you have disciples here, yeah? Okay. Imagine if Maharaj walked in the room and all you had read is this about Vani and Vapu. Oh, Hare Krishna Maharaj. You know, since Vani is more important than Vapu, why don't you just help yourself? You know, the prasad's downstairs. It's really all about Vani, right? So to say, both are important. So let's see what Prabhupada says elsewhere. Quote, to carry out the teachings of the Guru is more important than to worship the form, but none of them should be neglected. Form is called Vapu and teachings is called Vani. Both should be worshipped, although Vani is more important than Vapu. So because when you're serving the spiritual master, when he comes, when you're physically with him, that's an inspiration to take his words seriously more, even when you're not with him physically. So it's, both things are important. Although Vani is more important, as Prabhupada said to the devotees in the manor, Bhaktivedanta manor, the last time Srila Prabhupada was there, he was trying to do another world tour with practically no body left. He was down to about 60 pounds or some crazy thing. So Prabhupada was in a wheelchair, and he was too weak to even address the devotees, so he had his servant, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, give a talk. And Prabhupada's there wearing dark glasses, and he's super frail. The devotees are shocked, of course. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj used to tell the story of how I was giving highlights of Prabhupada's preaching Leela, glorifying Prabhupada. And at one point I said, of course, Srila Prabhupada was only with his Guru Maharaj maybe 5 or 6 times, which is true, physically. But then when I said that, Maharaj said, then I saw Prabhupada start to smile, and then he interrupted and he said, actually, there was never a time when I did not feel my Guru Maharaj right by my side. So it's not about physical presence, because if we're living in the light and the love and the depth of the Guru's instructions, then that's that's being in his association. That's the real association. Okay, so gone forever. You know, he's here and now he's gone and he's not accessible anymore. That's a completely mundane, bodily estimation of Prabhupada. Although the spiritual master's form and function are spiritual, it is his instructions that sustain us over time. As Srila Prabhupada noted on the dedication page of his Srimad Bhagavatam, quote, he lives forever by his divine instructions, and the follower lives with him. That's how Prabhupada dedicated his Indian Bhagavatams on the occasion of the 26th anniversary of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's disappearance. Although the founder Acharya provides the core identity for all generations of his followers, some people still insist on appointing Srila Prabhupada as everyone's perpetual initiating spiritual master, which is another sentimental fiction. Okay, Diksha Guru forever Prabhupada. He's everybody's perpetual initiating spiritual master. This was the reaction to the nonsense imitation of Prabhupada that was going on in the 80s. That was nonsense, and the reaction was nonsense. 108 wrongs don't make a right. Let's look at the fact of behind, the counterpoint to Diksha Guru forever. Now, who wants to read? How about Mataji?
Diksha Guru forever, Prabhupada. Fact. Keep trained up very rigidly and then you are bona fide Guru and you can accept disciples on the same principle. But as a matter of etiquette, it is the custom that during the lifetime of your spiritual master, you bring the prospective disciples to him, and in his absence or disappearance, you can accept disciples without any limitation. This is the law of disciplic succession. I want to see my disciples become bona fide spiritual master and spread Krishna consciousness very widely. That will make me and Krishna very happy. Close quote. Letter to Twisted Krishna, 2nd of December 1975.
This is the law of disciplic succession. Prabhupada was forever adjusting details. He never contravened principles. Now, this is 1975. Prabhupada refers to 1975 in a very early 1969 letter. Listen to this. Now, this is what occasioned this letter was the first couple of books had come out. And Prabhupada's so excited with the printing of teachings of Lord Chaitanya and Bhagavad Gita, his vision soaring off to the end of the millennium, he starts talking about how the books that are going to come out, we're going to have courses based on these books. And the devotees are going to get degrees based on these courses. And he compared studying Bhagavad Gita, I think it was just Gita at that time, to an associate's degree. And then when you study the first 6 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam, that will be the bachelor's degree. And then when you study the second 6 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam, that will be the master's. And then when you study the whole Sri Chaitanya Chaitamrita, that'll be the PhD. So in that mood, Prabhupada wrote in this 69 letter, quote, I want that all of my spiritual sons and daughters will inherit this title of Bhaktivedanta, so that the family transcendental diploma will continue through the generations. Those possessing the title of Bhaktivedanta will be allowed to initiate disciples. And then Prabhupada says, maybe by 1975, all of my disciples will be allowed to initiate and increase the numbers of the generations. That is my program. He didn't say he'd be gone either. He did say that the etiquette is you don't do that until your spiritual master is gone. But Prabhupada's mood is very expansive. So in that same mood, when, for example, our godbrother Kalakanta Prabhu at Krishna House in Gainesville, Florida, when he initiates people, he makes it very clear to them that he's their initiating guru. Prabhupada's the foundational guru, the founder Acharya. And then you know what he says? And in 10 years' time, I want to see you so Krishna conscious that you can start initiating. That's what he does. He gives them a real challenge right there. Here's another quote. Quote, so you, every one of you, can become guru. Now you may say that I am not interested to become a guru, but Lord Chaitanya says that if you are not interested, that's not very good. You should be interested. You must be guru. That is the success of your life. That was in Tehran 75. And one more, quote, it is not that you have become a student and you'll remain student. No, one day you shall become also guru and make more students, more. That is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. Not that perpetually, and then Prabhupada catches himself. He says, yes, one should remain perpetually a student. We should always be fools in front of our spiritual master. But one has to act as guru. That is the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, I step back from bashing Diksha Guru Forever Prabhupada, and I try to give a little context to why it arose. To be frank, what spawned this last sentimental fiction, Diksha Guru Forever Prabhupada, was gross imitation of our founder Acharya during ISKCON's zonal Acharya era. The hard lesson learned from those dark days, the founder Acharya provides the core identity and foundational relationship for all generations of his followers. We should think of the founder Acharya like the sun, and think of all generations as being orbiting around the sun of the founder Acharya. Just like Giriraj Swami wrote that book, Many Moons, that's what Prabhupada wants. He wants us all to purely reflect the light of his teachings. No need to sentimentally and illegally appoint his divine grace as everyone's perpetual Diksha Guru. Blessed are all of Prabhupada's disciplic descendants who already have him as their foundational guru. And blessed are the gurus who enrich, enhance, and deepen that foundational relationship. So why in the world would I want Prabhupada as my Diksha Guru? Even though I have him as my Diksha Guru, I always tell everybody, look, that's not my core identity, that I'm Prabhupada's Diksha disciple. My core identity is that I'm his Shiksha follower. That's what makes me a Prabhupada Nuga, not that he initiated me on Saturday, July 17th, 1971 in Detroit, Michigan. That's not what makes me a Prabhupada Nuga, a Prabhupada follower. So when I say that, what I'm inviting people to do is to recognize that they have the same access to Srila Prabhupada as I do, and even more access, because he's so accessible now by Chris's arrangement through electronic technology. Now, to close, now the last slide is so great because you hear right from Prabhupada's lotus mouth the attitude of a bona fide spiritual master. And if we had known this, you know, he said it in October 1972, but we didn't have the technology to necessarily know that he said this. Only a few heard this. And probably even the people who heard it, it was probably inconceivable to them what Prabhupada was saying. So to close, we'll listen to Srila Prabhupada reveal the mood of a genuine spiritual master toward his disciples. Okay, we ready with the, it's set? Okay, here we go. Oop. Okay, so there's Srila Prabhupada in that Radha Damodar courtyard, delivering those famous Nectar Devotion lectures for many weeks. And here's what Prabhupada said.
A spiritual master takes his devout disciples as his spiritual master. That is a position. He thinks that Krishna has sent me so many spiritual masters. He does not think himself as spiritual master. He thinks himself their servant, because they are to be trained. Krishna has appointed him to train them. Therefore, he thinks himself as the servant of the disciple. This is the position.
So, full absorption in Prabhupada's life, teachings, mood, and mission is the best prevention and the best cure for all kinds of fictional Prabhupads. Srila Prabhupada ki? All right, lesson outcomes. By the end of the lesson, students will be able to identify and dispel impersonal fictions about Srila Prabhupada, identify and dispel sentimental fictions about Prabhupada, and finally identify the mood of a true master toward his disciples. Can you imagine if we understood that? Hindsight is always 20/20, right? When Prabhupada left, if we had understood that, it would have prevented that whole founder Acharya imitation of the founder Acharya by all the rookie gurus. But we had to learn the hard way, and that's usually how we learn, by a combination of hearing and getting kicked from here to kingdom come. All righty, so it's late, 12:31, but lunch is not served till 1:10. So, let me get the lights, huh?
I collected a few questions. So, one was just a comment based on this Vani and Vapu. And this Satsrup Maharaj's book about that section of the Bhagavatam which he dedicated to the disappearance of Srila Prabhupada. It's called, I'm not sure, it's a little gray book, it's about 50 pages.
Oh, He Lives Forever.
Yeah, that is full of Vani and Vapu. I mean, if you really want to, I mean, every page is Vani and Vapu.
If you want a good resource for that. But where is it? It's probably just in the archives.
I have a copy.
And it's also in the database, if you have the database.
Yeah, He Lives Forever, yeah. So that's a good reference to really explore this topic deeper, because it's not so easy to understand that.
Because we're in the bodily concept of life. Naturally, we hanker after Vapu. Yeah?
Yeah, and, okay. And then, when you were making the point about education in ISKCON, do you have a copy or with you, or any reference to that letter that was written by Tamal Krishna Goswami and signed by Prabhupada, which established education in ISKCON? 1974.
Oh, what's exactly is in the letter?
Tamal Krishna Goswami was commissioned by Prabhupada to outline the whole system of education, speaking about Bhakti Shastra, Bhakti Vaibhava.
Okay.
And then after he did it, Prabhupada signed it and made it an edict within our society. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which was probably the inspiration for example, Borijan to start the VIHE.
Yeah. So that goes back to 74. So.
74. Yeah, but this letter was 69. That was the seed of the whole thing.
Oh.
There, I guess in 74 letter he must have articulated the whole system.
Yeah, he actually explained it in the 4 categories and briefly what was the requirements for each of the categories.
Wow. Yeah, I'd like to see it. Well, 74, what month, do you know? Okay.
I can find it easily.
Any key words to...
It's just simply a delineation of the ideas that make up the format.
Right, but...
Okay, for Bhakti Shastra is like, as you said, associate, like that. And then each one like that.
Yeah, I guess I was conflating those 2 letters then, because Prabhupada did say what he said, that I want all my sons and daughters to inherit the title of Bhakti Vedanta and initiate.
And then in 1976 he was with Panchadevita Maharaj, and they were talking about second initiation. An incident came up where Prabhupada had given second initiation to someone and they had left right after that. So, and then they were talking about what qualifies one to take second initiation. Panchadavidya Maharaj says, sometimes the temple leaders, they need a pujari.
And a cook.
And Prabhupada said, not like that. He said, now we will institute this shastric principle that for second initiation, you have to have Bhakti Shastra accreditation. And he mentioned 10 books, which were the smaller books that were been in print, as the foundation for that accreditation. So, that was 76, and Prabhupada is, and how long it took us to get to that point? I mean...
Well, 11 years later, there was at least a VIHE, but not until Janmashtami took it to Mayapur did he start doing the systematic, the 4 books for Bhakti Shastri and...
MIHE at the time, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it started in Vrindavan was first.
Okay, yeah, it started in 87, but it wasn't really systematic then, but I guess, yeah, they did develop it after, yeah, you're right. Okay. And you had another question?
No, I just wanted to bring those points up in relationship to what you said.
Yeah, I'd like to read that 74 letter. Okay. To Tamal Krishna Maharaj.
He wrote it, Prabhupada endorsed it.
Oh, I see. He was the secretary at that
Yeah,
time.
Prabhupada told him to write it, and then after he wrote it, he showed it to Prabhupada, Prabhupada signed it.
So it went all over the society.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Good. Education, education, education. Got a Mataji's.
Prabhu, I was thinking about Prabhupada being the Diksha Guru forever, because there is a whole big movement, especially in India. I don't know if it's in other countries, but...
It was started in Mississippi, though.
Oh.
Ritvigism.
So, and like they do so much food distribution. It's so popular. And like everyone wants to donate to them, like they have a high opinion of them. What should be our, like, how should we regard them? Because philosophically, certainly there is a big deviation, but from a different angle, like it's so successful, so organized, and so well done.
Yeah. Well, success in organization, you could say, who was it just hit the $1 trillion mark in the stock market? It was Apple. Became the first company ever to hit the $1 trillion value mark in the stock market. Why are we cheering Apple? You must have the blessings of God because you're, So we have to be very careful in equating external success with spiritual success. So in that case, I mean, if you know the history there in Bangalore and Mayapur and the personalities and like that, it's not surprising what happened. So hopefully as the founder Acharya Siddhanta becomes more and more understood, because it really takes the wind out of the sails of Diksha Guru Forever Prabhupada. It's true, it's half right. It's half right that there was a focus on Prabhupada was lost in the 80s. But their conclusion is completely upasiddhantic, that the founder Acharya becomes the perpetual Diksha Guru. You don't see that in Ramanuji, Madhva. It's got no precedent in any authentic line. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff going on there, but it just has to be, the Siddhanta just has to be reinstated there to make it even more successful. Well, where was I? I was in Delaware. Yeah, I was in Delaware, and then I was in Knoxville, and then now I'm here. And an Indian fellow was pouring his heart out to me, because he's from Bangalore, and he said, I know the difference. It took me a while because I first started going to the temple in Bangalore, and so I couldn't distinguish, what they were preaching from what Prabhupada's Siddhanta was. And then finally, when I met the devotees from the Jagannath temple in Bangalore, and I guess they have another temple too, that are philosophically on, then I understood how they were deviating philosophically, even though they were doing so many wonderful things externally. But my father, Prabhu, he said, my father, who's my age, I finally got him I finally weaned him away from Hinduism, and now he's a Krishna Bhakta, but he hasn't taken initiation yet, and he's getting senile. And I'm afraid if he ever does insist on initiation, that's when I have to tell my father, you can't take initiation from the people there, because they're going to initiate you as Prabhupada's Diksha disciple. So what to do, Prabhu? Because he's really attached to this temple. That's all he knows from Prabhupada's ISKCON, but it's actually not Prabhupada's ISKCON philosophically. So I said, well, you're going to have to be very tactful, and it's a razor's edge. You're going to have to show him philosophically what's right, and even if he doesn't get it, you're going to somehow have to trick him into connecting with Prabhupada completely, thoroughly, through the Guru Parampara. That's correct. So it's not going to be easy, but maybe if that's too disturbing for your father, he doesn't get it, maybe you don't even go there. You know, don't even have him take initiation, but just let him be attached to Krishna and Prabhupada as he is, as he's doing it. Now Maharaj has another suggestion for this fellow, I hope. In Bear, Delaware.
In your earlier lectures, you mentioned that one lady who became really attached to Prabhupada.
Yes, yes.
That's pretty much a clear understanding of how to approach the whole thing.
Yeah, does everybody remember was everybody here for the first lesson? I told the story of this lady who was in ISKCON for 17 years before she finally took Diksha, because she finally got the right information from somebody who said, look, I'm not going to block what if you took Diksha from somebody who would not block your relationship with Prabhupada, but would enrich it, enhance it, and deepen it? So yeah, I think I did say that to the man too, come to think of it. If he really wants to take Diksha. But yeah, but the devotee was countering and saying, but all he knows is the devotees in that temple. And that's what they think, that Prabhupada's the perpetual Diksha Guru. Even though Prabhupada made it very clear, that's not the way it works. But anyway, if somebody's a bona fide spiritual master, that's the role of the bona fide Guru. One of the duties post-founder Acharya is that you bring your disciples closer to the founder Acharya.
I've been there to that temple. I went to visit, and when they saw ISKCON sannyasi coming to visit, they assigned someone to be with me, so I wouldn't do anything wrong. So I had a guide all the way around. I got to Lord Nrsingadev, and I prayed to him to come back to ISKCON. So.
Hey, there you go.
But then when I was in the temple itself, I didn't feel that spiritual energy. It was a nice display. I mean, because everything was so nicely arranged, and opulence and organization, but I didn't feel that spiritual energy so much.
Yeah, there you go. The true spirit. So, yeah, hopefully Krishna will arrange it that Prabhupada's that was an ISKCON temple. It was stolen, basically, by legal tricks. Anyway, we can't just bash the Ritviks. We have to recognize the cause of it was imitation. It was a problem we created. Dr. Frankenstein created his monster. And so we have to stop the pendulum, Dikshism and Ritvikism, squarely at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada as the foundational Shiksha Guru of all generations of his followers. And that's the unity amidst all the wild diversity. That's what's going to enable us to, in a unified way, take Krishna consciousness to every town and village. We have an excellent opportunity to do that. We just have to act on it. Otherwise, our diversity will eventually get us. It will splinter us. Okay, one more.
I have one more too, but let her go first.
Prabhu, you were mentioning about the history of how this happened, and I'm not aware of the history of how, like, this happened. Like, do you think it's necessary to know, like,
how it happened that there was a founder of Acharya,
the Ritvik
zonal
philosophy
Acharya era? How it splintered?
Yeah, how the Ritvik philosophy came about.
Well, because of immaturity, ignorance, and a little personal ambition mixed in there. And also doing just what Prabhupada said not to do, which was to consult his godbrothers about how to carry on with the GBC, which they did not do. That's why they fell apart, because they refused to have a GBC. Actually, they made a half-hearted attempt, I've heard, but then it quickly collapsed, the attempt, under pressure from two camps who were competing to replace Bhaktisiddhanta as the supreme authority, which this is just not what you do.
Mm-hmm. And I think another point was they misinterpreted Prabhupada's statement when he actually designated, not appointed, but indicated that these 11 persons are the most advanced, and then eventually they could become full gurus.
Eventually what?
They will become full gurus. He didn't say they were spiritual masters, but they could act on his behalf until they actually achieved that. So, but that didn't become communicated to, so they also thought, oh, we are just full gurus, so we're good as Prabhupada. And that's where the Ritviks were able to come in and find fault.
Yeah. Because they were right on one level.
Yeah.
But then their solution was all wrong. So they knew what was wrong, they didn't know what was right. Basically, it was ignorance, naivete, personal ambition was there. And so the rest is history that we should study and learn from and not repeat. Yeah. Those who don't study history are condemned to repeat its mistakes. But human history shows that repeatedly human beings do repeat the mistakes of history. So, but by being in touch with Prabhupada in an authentic way, in the Sangha of his serious and sincere devotees, then we won't repeat that. It's a shame it had to happen. A lot of people left ISKCON. A lot of people were hurt. I still know people who are floating around ISKCON because they're in this perpetual my guru left mood. Well, that happens. Just like I gave the example in lesson 2, if your parents somehow go bad, still they're your parents, so you honor them for what they did for you, but then maybe you have to take Sangha from somebody else. Mm-hmm. And especially we have to take Sangha from Srila Prabhupada, our foundational guru.
Another point is that every time one of the gurus fell down, that was a way to indicate that the Ritviks were right. Just see, we're right. Just see, you're surreptitiously coming in and taking position. Your fall down is to show that this is,
That's called demagogue. A demagogue, D-E-M-A-G-O-G-U-E, is someone who plays upon the concerns and fears and ignorance of the potential followers to get his own agenda done. We have it going on right now in America. So we can't be demagogues, nor can we be imitators of Prabhupada. We have to follow it. We have to know what Prabhupada wanted. Mm-hmm. By saying that each of you can be Acharya of your zone, he didn't mean that they were going to replace him. But that's what it turned into. The zonal Acharya system became the zonal Acharya nightmare. At least, here's the thing, the only thing that prevented ISKCON from collapsing like the Gaudiya Math was that at least there was a GBC in place, as weak and as compromised as it was. At least it was there. There was some structure to rally around. Whereas Gaudiya Math, they never gave themselves a chance. Because they didn't understand, how can a spiritual institution be run by a bunch of managers. But as Prabhupada would say, Govinda's institution is also Govinda. And if that management is managed by people who are following the founder Acharya's instructions, their management is not material, it's spiritual. But that's the central challenge we have in ISKCON, to harmonize the lines of authority coming down from guru to disciple with the lines of authority coming from GBC to temple presidents, for example. How do you do that? That's unprecedented challenge. The parampara has never, Guru parampara, nowhere in history has been run like that. But that's the challenge. So how do we meet that challenge? By our supreme allegiance to our founder Acharya, who wants us to cooperate and get along, and accept the governing body as the ultimate managing authority. We need strong management and we need strong guru-disciple relationships. We need both. And they should be able to cooperate and not clash. That takes supreme allegiance to Prabhupada's will that we cooperate.
And one more point, that the initiating gurus who are Prabhupada's disciples, they have to be transparent to Prabhupada. If they're not, then that problem will again start to fester.
Yes, and they have to cooperate with Prabhupada's system of management. Nobody's independent. No GBC is independent. No guru is independent. We have to work together to further the preaching mission. That takes a lot of non-enviousness, a lot of humility, patience. It just takes Krishna consciousness, advanced Krishna consciousness. So we're doing better, you know, but we still have a ways to go. As Krishna showed us in Mayapur when all that violence broke out. And threats against the GBC. Oh my God. Okay.
When did Ravinda Sarup's book come out, which was that
2014. It was published.
That was asked by the GBC that each and every disciple in ISKCON should read and understand that book. We were distributing it by the hundreds.
Let's see how many people have read this book right in this room. It's called Srila Prabhupada, the Founder Acharya. It came out of our... Good, that's a couple anyway. You should read this. It's on the database now?
I think so.
I think it is, in the latest edition. And I also have it in an electronic version, just in PDF. Now, the challenge of reading that book is that Ravindra Sarup is a PhD in religion. He wrote it in very high academic discourse, so a lot of devotees can't even follow that book. So he's like the supreme philosopher in our Prabhupada Position Committee from the Strategic Planning Network. I'm the guy that's been traveling around the world with the seminars, which I try to pitch at a basic, understandable level. So people often need help understanding that book. That's why Ravindra himself made a seminar just about the book to try to unpack it for people who couldn't quite get it. But it's very good.
He's giving that seminar now?
I don't think he's done that. I think he made it and then he did it maybe for a year, but it requires constant education of people coming in. Okay, when? Oh, that's pretty recent. Now he's moved upstate New York and he's pretty sequestered there. He's writing about Shikshastik. I don't think he travels and does that. He does travel some, but he's a GBC emeritus. He has no GBC responsibility. He just wants to write. And he does online preaching, which is what he should do. Anyway, if you can, get a hold of this book. It's the philosophical underpinning of this whole Founder Acharya series. It's called Srila Prabhupada, the Founder Acharya. It's available on our committee's website. I think prabhupada.org or I forget. Anyway, it's out there. It's online.
It's not very big, so was it about 80 pages, maybe a little more?
Summary.
No,
yeah, it starts with a summary.
The total amount, it's about 80 pages or something?
It's about 80, 90 pages.
90.
Booklet. Yeah, but he starts with a summary. But to really get the full historical, cultural, philosophical presentation, you really need to read the book and bring a dictionary while you're reading it. Okay, how are we doing? 5-1, shall we? Okay, one last question from Subal Prabhu.
Just wanna, I have a question, but I wanted to add that also we were following the resolution that every disciple have to, or every aspiring disciple have to do the disciple course, and in the disciple course, the book, Srila Ravindra Prabhu's book is also included. So they have to read it like that.
Okay, yeah. And that's, I took the disciples course 3 times just to see what they were up to. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
There's a strong founder Acharya component. But my realization is that before they take the disciples course, they need to take the founder Acharya series, seminars. That's the foundational course.
Nice.
Then they can take the disciples course and really get it. Really understand how to aspire and not perspire and then expire. Right?
Nice.
Okay.
So the question I have is, you, in the presentation is the parent with Srila Prabhupada, he lies down the law for disciplic succession, which is that when the spiritual master is present, then the disciples bring the aspiring, disciples to the lotus feet of the present Acharya.
No, what are you saying? When your guru passes on, you're supposed to act as a spiritual master in your own right.
Correct. When the spiritual master is present, or Srila Prabhupada was present then, or the spiritual master is present, the disciple will bring the aspiring initiates to the spiritual master. Is that correct?
He's the spiritual master, but he's connecting his disciples with the whole parampara. If he's actually taken initiation from a bona fide spiritual master, that current of true Krishna consciousness is running through him. And he's going to connect his disciple with the whole Guru Parampara.
I think I'm not making my question clear. In the context of that Prabhupada says, that law, I remember reading it, that Prabhupada says that when the spiritual master is alive, then the disciple of the spiritual master will bring, it's not that he becomes a guru in the presence of the guru.
Right. Okay.
Now, we see that happening nowadays in ISKCON by the blessings of the guru, in which a disciple of the guru in the presence of the guru is given initiation.
Right, but that's not transgressing the etiquette, because that's at the request of the guru. Okay, and Maharaj has more on that. You're not transgressing the etiquette if your guru insists.
If you read the GBC minutes of this year, that's an ongoing topic, and it's going to be brought up again in the upcoming meetings with the GBC. They have made exceptions with Mahavishnu Maharaj, because he was a disciple of Shivaram Maharaj, and they allowed him to accept disciples while he was here. There was one other situation, I'm not sure who else, but they made exceptions. Now they're re-evaluating that whole process. So it's still a matter of discussion yet. So
okay.
It hasn't come to what they say, a complete conclusion yet. Mahavishnu Maharaj was really pushing, because he says, I'm an old man, I want some children. And so many people were coming to him, and he was super qualified. So with a long discussion, went on a couple years in the GBC, they gave that concession to Mahavishnu Maharaj. So they took the tradition a little bit outside and allowed that to happen. So, and then there's one other case, Kalakanta? No, he's not.
Well, Kalakanta is just in that mood that Prabhupada was in. Because when Prabhupada said, maybe by 1975, all my students who've gotten that Bhaktivedanta title, they'll initiate all my boys and girls. And he didn't say he'd be gone.
Right.
And he wasn't gone.
They
And
told
today,
that to Tush to Krishna in 1974. That, you might decide you have to become spiritual master. He told them directly in a letter.
yeah, but wait until I'm gone. But then in another letter, he said that. So, and also in Russia, we have the situation where it's exploding, and there's not enough people to give senior association. So, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, the Russian householder initiator,
I know
he's
him.
a disciple of JPS, right?
Right.
Yeah. So did the GBC discuss that?
That plus Bhakti Rasamatu Maharaj, who's a disciple of
Radhanath
Swami, he's got hundreds of people lined up.
Who want to take initiation?
Yeah, from him, they're waiting. So
Yeah.
what are we going to do? So that's all part of this upcoming discussion.
Okay, so that's...
Someone came up to me, I don't want to sound a little, they said, this was last Sunday here, they said, I've been waiting for Bhakti Rasamatu Maharaj for years, I can't wait any longer. So they came and said, can you be my guru? So they came to me. So I was thinking, all right, I'll do the work, but you're really, that's who your guru is Bhakti Rasamatu Maharaj. Because they have given their heart, but they just don't want to wait any longer for the actual. So whether they're right or wrong in their decision not to wait, that's still we can't really understand. But these are the situations that arise with what the tradition has been saying, and then the present situation, how it applies. Because we have a unique situation, a worldwide organization. Because traditionally, it's the guru, disciple in the village, and you're right there, and but that's not even near what we have.
What Bhaktivinoda Thakur envisioned as the Hare Krishna movement, supervised by a governing body commission, encompassing many God families and gurus, it's unprecedented. We're in uncharted waters here in many cases.
Yeah.
In many cases. And that's the challenge of the Hare Krishna movement. To carry on the tradition, not breaking the spirit of it, but maybe adjusting details that have never been done. But what's the purpose? To unblock the flow of mercy. What Maharaj just reported from this person, he knows who his spiritual master is, but by some technicality he's not allowed to initiate. So Prabhupada, he would unblock the flow of mercy. Anyway, that's a long discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, we better stop because it's time for prasad. And at 2:30 we're going to do the final lesson of the series called Your Srila Prabhupada. And each one of us has that relationship. It just has to be developed. So I'm trying to unblock the flow here of mercy. If you thought Prabhupada wasn't your spiritual master, think again. He's not your Diksha Guru. He's more than that. He's your founder Acharya. Adiyan, Prabhupada, Dasan. I am your servant, the servant of Srila Prabhupada. All generations should be able to say that, as long as there is a Hare Krishna movement. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.